Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ask Adam Live. As you know, if you've listened to the show, if not, I'll introduce you. ASK is the acronym for Always Seek Knowledge. One thing I hope that each one of these episodes prompts you to do as an individual is to seek knowledge, to understand a little bit more, not only of the topics we talk about, but hopefully it engages that little spark within your soul that you begin to discover something neat, new, and different, and maybe pivot your life in a different direction. Now, I don't claim that this is going to change the world, but it certainly is going to change your world. And at the end of the day, it kind of goes back to self-care, does it not? And so let's look out for each other. Let's look out for ourselves. In today's episode, authentic leadership in an artificial world. Welcome to the show. Now let's begin. Authentic leadership in an artificial world. When the world feels filtered, relentless, when the world feels filtered, realness becomes our greatest advantage. In a world full of noise, animation, and filters, what people crave most is something real. As AI curated personas and algorithm decision-making rise, genuine human leadership isn't just refreshing, it's revolution. I remember a time where things in the business got so automated that I wasn't connecting with the agents, specifically in real estate, for instance, that I wasn't connecting with them as I should. We kind of stepped away from having our weekly meetings and they turned into monthly meetings. And I found that I was just getting uncomfortable and resented the business. And I didn't quite understand why until, which goes back to another one of our episodes, and I don't want to spoil that, but going to the beach. Some of my greatest ideas, the deepest thoughts I've ever had is either by myself, with some people, I guess I should say in a quiet space, on the beach, listening to people and the ocean and the birds and the chatter and whatnot. And I just find peace in that location. I could be on the beach by myself and find that same peace. Sometimes by the pool is effective, has to be quiet. Don't really appreciate the DJ up on the platform playing loud music. But nonetheless, it's that peace that I find that allows me to get creative and think. Also doesn't hurt to have a great inspirational book in your hand. Out in the sunshine is really the best place to read, I found. And being on the beach is just plain relaxed. But anyway, I digress. It was on the beach that I discovered we stepped away from weekly meetings. We weren't engaging with each other. We were all busy doing the busy. And, life is lifing, as Brown, my good friend Les Brown says, life be lifing. Things are happening, but we have to stay focused and understand what is real and not get too lost in the systems and processes and getting things automated that all of a sudden we forget. We truly need to continue to communicate with each other. And through the many businesses I've been in, those one-on-one meetings, although sometimes are a hassle and finding parking and getting to a designated city and just doing all the side things just to get to the table, I do have to say, with all honesty, is the best place to be. The energy there, the situation is there. Sometimes it's a room with a window and a great view that can add to the conversation or just some insight and clarity. I remember one of the real estate offices that I had in Denver, Colorado. It was in the south side of Denver in what they call the tech center. And it was simply on, I don't know, 9th or 10th floor, but it looked to the west and looked towards the Rocky Mountains. And I'll never forget just how often I went to the window. I could see it from my desk, but the perspective from the actual window where the mountains were in the distance, snow covered most of the time, of the Rocky Mountains. And you could see sort of the Western plains, if you will, allowed you to have such a view. And then you could look down and see the traffic many times on that north-south corridor known as I-25 that runs through Denver. And it just really brought everything into perspective that being able to see everything kind of reminded you that you're in the real world and there are people sitting in traffic and those people in the cars have real lives and just sort of brought things into perspective, but also many times being on the phone, deal kind of going south, just like you have the emotions and the reactions of wanting to do something. And I found myself stepping forward away from my desk towards the glass and just sort of taking in the world outside of my office to get real again and not be caught up in, although it's a real event happening, at the end of the day, it's artificial because it's just a speed bump in the middle of that transaction. Does that make sense? I might have gone off the rails on that. I apologize. I hope that this episode unpacks how we lead with realness, trust, and grounded presence in a world that often rewards image over integrity. I mean, how many times have you seen someone, especially social media? I mean, that's probably the greatest 10-year experiment we've had, is seeing someone and their image and just going, wow, I would like to be them, or wow, look at their life. That's just an image. That is like a 0.01% snapshot of their life. A 0.01% part of their day, their week, their month, their year. If social media was truly honest, I would like to see the person in that glamour shot, if you will, how they maybe walk through the streets of cardboard boxes and people living on the streets and homeless and food banks and shelters and traffic and pollution and all the stuff it took to get to the studio to take that picture. The reality of getting to that place, right, is reality. So how do we get back to the reality? How do we get to our true integrity? Well, part one, what does authentic really mean? Let's jump into this. Authenticity equals congruence between what you think, feel, say, and do. See, it's a commitment to lead from core values, not just curated message. And I know a lot of us out there in business, we have our mission statements and our values and all the stuff that's there. I quite frankly have my 4 principles. And those are just with life. Forget business. Those are the 4 principles by which all decisions in my life, I say all because in the last 5 years, I'm committed to that. Prior to, I might just look at one and go, well, okay, it agrees with the first one, but not going through the other 3. And as they say, haste, well, it doesn't give you great results for sure. So make sure that it aligns with, say, at least 4 principles, that it falls within those 4 corners, and then it's something you can live with. A decision you can truly sink yourself into. Now you're talking authenticity. And not just based on your message or tagline, your whatever's been developed through your habitual behavior of social media. And we all start to develop that persona, if you will, of ourselves that we share to the world outside of our box, our room, our home, our life, our personal life. What the world sees outside of that box many times can be different. And I'm speaking to you ladies as well. I don't want to put anybody out on this one, but I can't tell you how many individuals that I have met who won't leave the house before they slather on lots of makeup. Well, is that your authentic self or you're creating a persona? I'm just throwing that out there. And you need to be your authentic self and show up as you. And if you're constantly getting together like it's prom night, well, you're probably not presenting the world your authentic self. And you're creating that persona that, well, it creates that little bit of a falsehood. And keep in mind back to principles, if that's something that you're accepting as being the norm, well, what else are you accepting as being the norm? And what other habitual behaviors are helping to create this persona, if you will, that's developing this person to, I'm probably going to say this here, is the person you're really not. So we can start with ourselves when it comes to authenticity, when it comes to showing up as ourselves. We can always be our best and we can look our best, but don't change that from who you really are. Because at the end of the day, who you really are is who people really like. Now I'll jump into a little bit of what I always practice is some neuroencoding insight is authenticity builds electromagnetic trust. When your nervous system is aligned with your words, people feel safe. And it's that feeling of safety, not the lather on your face, not the designer dress that you wear. It's the you presenting you to the other person is what they are connecting to. It's that energy that they're absorbing. It's your authentic self they're accepting. I'll tell you, in real estate, when we would many times have get-togethers, charity functions, if you will, and we get out on the golf course, some of my best conversations and some of the insight I learned about people that I worked with and networked and incorporated, whether it was the home inspectors, whether it was an appraiser, not that we were in cahoots. We just did so much business together, met each other so many times at so many different addresses. It was like, hey, great to see you again. And many times we were busy in the day where it was like we all had appointments to go to. So it was a hi bye, hope you're doing well, catch you when I catch you. And it was slight, but when they would do charity events, we'd get together and play 18 rounds of golf together, spend about 6 hours doing a tournament. I mean, the conversations on the greens, the conversations in the cart, the conversations at the lunch table, it just, the connections with people was amazing. And again, you cannot replace the one-on-one, the group. If you're at a table, you're connecting with those people. And I guess I should probably interject a little bit. There's a friend of mine, we started having conversations where they're having trouble connecting. And I found this unbelievably strange. I was like, it's part of our nature. And they're like, yeah, I just don't connect. We're working on that. We're working on that together. But if this is a struggle for you, if you are like my friend out there and you're like, yeah, even at the table, I'm there and I'm with people and I enjoy the excitement and the camaraderie and everything, but I'm just not connecting with people. And I don't leave the table with the idea in my mind that I've created a friend and then I've developed a relationship. I just had dinner with a bunch of people at the table. If that's you, let's sit down, let's try to work that out because it is super, super important that you learn to connect with people. And even those simple engagements, even in a large group, even if you connected with one person and followed and had the ability to follow up with them later, that is a connection. And that is how things get built. And pretty soon you leave the table with 5 connections instead of 1. And then you connect with the entire table and you start to engage and network with them for whatever reason, whether it's in business or personal or whatever you have in common. But it's you being your authentic self is truly what energizes these type of networking experiences that you can have. I never forgot what Maya Angelou said. People don't want the perfect version of you. They want the present version of you. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Maya Angelou said that people never forget how you made them feel as to maybe what you shared or taught them. So you want to make sure that you connect on that level and feel a little bit. And if there's some empathy that can blossom from that conversation, let it go there. Sometimes Sometimes it gets weird. I'll be upfront with you on that one. Sometimes people start telling you stuff and you're like, wow, I'm just here for the great seafood or whatever it is. I'm just here to network with people and all of a sudden but I always go back to life is happening for us, not to us. And I cannot say that anymore. So when you find yourself in that uncomfortable situation, flip the switch and change that. It's not uncomfortable. There's a reason that you're there. There's a reason that you're either there to support someone or there's a reason that you're there to hear from someone. And being your authentic self and being there without fear, without reservation, but with that uplifted energy of participating with someone, because they're going to have the same energy back. And so you need to exchange these energies. And that's where those experiences and connections come together. Part two, signs that you're leading from image, not integrity. Here's a little self-check. Let's get into this. Am I saying what I think is right or what I think will be like? Let me repeat that. Am I saying what I think is right or what I think will be like? Am I hiding failures instead of learning out loud? Do I edit my leadership voice to match the trend instead of the truth? Those will be in the handout later if you were unable to write them down. But those are a little bit of a self-check. Again, principle to always ask yourself, have these written down, have them on a post-it, wherever you make decisions, have those three statements put in a frame, fashionable, post-it, wherever you would put them, see them, to be able to look at them and allow that to resonate with you to help you make a decision and to make the right decision. I remember I was with a client and we sat down and it was really a unique experience that they were having to transact their property to sell the home. And I mean, in my mind, having my real estate hat on that day, and I drove and had my briefcase and had all my stuff together and my presentation and all, I was going to talk about my business. And I always took a few minutes at that time that I would just engage with the client and just not pull anything out because we weren't doing business yet. We were having a conversation. And some of that was just to sort of get the here to do business vibe out of the room because I didn't want it to be there. I never liked the business vibe. I'm not a hustler. I shouldn't say that. I was a hustler in many other things. But in that particular instance, I wasn't there to just get the listing, put a sign in the yard, and go to the next thing. I know there's agents out there that do that, and that's them, but that wasn't me. That wasn't how I did my business. And quite frankly, I feel most sincerely that that was the success of my business, is that I wasn't just, hey, sign here, we'll keep you updated on the results. No, I sat down because I wanted to understand the sale of the home, why you're selling the home, what's important to you through the process of selling the home. Because if sometimes it didn't align with my principles, then I wasn't all for it. And I wasn't, they kind of weren't getting my buy-in. I didn't want to participate. And I remember sitting at the kitchen table and we were kind of going through the process of the understanding the whys, and the other person, they started breaking down and it got uncomfortable because I was like, yeah, I still, I knew what I was doing. I don't want to say an agenda, but I had my checklist, if you will. And so there was the kind of going to the next process, and I didn't go there, but we got into a conversation. And I mean, the short story, without disclosing names and locations, addresses, and stuff like that, protect the innocent. Basically, it was the sale of the home was the outcome of what was becoming a divorce situation. They were going to separate and wanted to sell the home. And at at a moment in that meeting, as they were breaking down and discussing, talking about their personal things, and my authentic self took the real estate hat off. And the only thing that day I reached out in my briefcase to get, metaphorically, not physically, was the other hat in my bag, which was counselor, pastoral, whatever. And I put that hat on and I just sat there and I listened and I listened. And the idea of selling their magnificent home in a beautiful location that was not only a dream combined, but a dream rebuilt where they made it their own. It was kind of a shack when they got it. And they built it up to make it really something magnificent. And I just, as a counselor, having my counselor hat on now, I had to pivot there. And I just went through the process and kind of talked through it and, took, I don't want to say copious notes, but just took down some things and gave it back to them and said, well, okay, what about this? And, but it was more of a counseling session. And I share that with you today is because it was my authentic self always that I brought to the table, but it was also my authentic self that I pivoted as a responsible individual and said, we're not doing anything with this now. I'm not going to be part of it, but also the empathetic part of me, the authentic part of me said, there's no reason to sell this house. You're not giving me a viable reason. You're giving me a situation that quite frankly needs attention before any other step can take place. And I think it resonated with that client quite well because the home didn't go on the market. And it wasn't by me, and it also wasn't by another agent. So I know that things were worked out, and I know that that conversation was impactful. And I know some of you people might be listening and going, yeah, but you lost the commission. No, I gained a client and I gained the trust of another human being by allowing them to feel better after I left than the nervous, uncomfortable, shaky, uncertain, high energy, uncontrollable vibe of the room when I walked into it. Because they were uncertain and they were scared and they were like, I need to do this, but I don't know why. And when I do this, what's going to happen? How's the transaction take place? And can you find me somewhere else to live? And it was like all of this just scatterbrained, if you will. It was everywhere. And when I walked out of that home, it was slower energy, a calmer situation, no more sweat on the brow, no more nervousness, no more uncertainty. I left them with a game plan, and it was not a game plan to sell their house, which is the hat I wore when I drove and walked in the door was as a real estate agent selling homes and marketing for people, for individuals. If that's your authentic self in whatever it is you're doing in business, you need to sometimes pivot and sometimes change. And sometimes build more trust than play the part that you're playing. Number 3, principles of authentic leadership. Lead with your values, not just your voice. It seems like many leaders are strong, have a great vocabulary, well-spoken, can kind of get the masses and team members to do as they do and move as they need to move in order to keep production and function moving in a forward direction. But sometimes you got to dial it back, and you got to go back to your principles and your value and say what's most important. And I'm going to interject this just a little bit, as I know the world's kind of gotten lost with the diversity, equity, and inclusion, but I think the root of what that is all about may be instilled in some values as well as your ethics, right? So that your authentic self says, wait a minute, let's step over here and take care of this. And if that occupies the meeting time and the space, so be it. Life is happening for us, not to us. And I feel that even in a leadership capacity, that is there, that opportunity is there. So as a leader, you may be learning something from that experience. I'm just speaking in general because I don't know the details of what oddities of things are happening. But again, these are just details. We're just sort of glossing, or the general aspect of this, we're just glossing over. But the details are what you're going to experience. Let me ask you, what are your 3 non-negotiables? And do you use them every time to filter decisions, responses, and goals? As I mentioned earlier, you post your values and your principles up around the 3 that I mentioned earlier that will be in the handout. Are you, when you make a decision, are those the 3 things that you're looking at? So lead with your values. Number 2, tell the truth in real time. See, authentic leaders don't fake certainty. They admit when they're learning. They adapt and are sometimes unsure. If that is the situation that you fall into as a leader, it's okay to demonstrate this little nugget of weakness. It actually, again, is that energy that may connect with anyone in the room that you're leading. Remember, you're leading many people. So you have to resonate with each one of them. And one might be like, oh, wow, they admitted they're learning. Oh, another 5 may be, oh, we're adaptive. I get it. They've pivoted in their life enough, they resonate with that. Admit that you're unsure. Say, hey, I've never been here before. We're kind of working on this together. Talk about team building. Somebody says that in a room that says, hey, I'm unsure about this, but we're going to navigate it together. Let's brainstorm. You just got my buy-in. You got 100-fold buy-in. You know what? Because you said, now I need everybody's collaboration. And if you didn't capture the room with a statement like that of, hey, I'm kind of unsure, but let's work on it together. That's leadership gold right there. In fact, you could probably stop the episode right there. Just engage with the team of certain times when there is uncertainty and that you need everyone's help to participate. Just to brainstorm. Not to say you don't have the idea, but you're looking for the spark to trigger the idea you already have in your head. You just kind of, maybe you're a little scatterbrained at the moment to navigate and determine which is the best direction to go into to solve a certain situation. And you brainstorm with your team, and all of a sudden they throw a match right in your direction. Boom, ignite the idea, and you go, I got it. And that is the rebirth of a leader every single time. Number 3, use technology. Don't become it. Show your face, speak your truth. Write your own words. If you feel something and you want to convey it to someone, write it down. Handwritten, amazing. Great results every time. You can allow automation to support you. but don't outsource your voice. And don't automate your voice. For general conversation, sure. Quick email, the instant messages that businesses use, Slacks and whatnot, great. Some of that stuff is just, it's redundant. You don't want to repeat yourself. And you can even set those things up on an auto turn just to remind your team, hey, this is where we're at. This is what we're doing. Hey, appreciate your support. You know, those little follow-ups. But don't lose the aspect of being your authentic self by maybe writing a hand note, leaving it on someone's desk, or actually handing it to them and saying, hey, I really appreciate your efforts. And maybe even a small gift, whether it's a gift card for a cup of coffee, or you know that they have expressed enjoying a favorite sandwich shop down the street, or whatever it is, that genuine connection, something that doesn't occur in the business, that you are able to gift to them, to acknowledge to them that not only they're seen and they're heard, but they're recognized as an individual with an individual hobby or an individual mindset or an individual favorite or love for something. That authenticity, again, is gold to reach out to your team and to align with them, to let them know that it's not just the business level, it's the personal level. And it's not just the personal level, it's the understanding level. That they're not just someone that shows up. Again, authenticity is, I think, the biggest key in leadership. When individuals are in a position where they don't feel that they're heard or seen, it begins to crumble the foundation, quite frankly, of a team. And number 4, model what you want multiplied. Model what you want multiplied. Vulnerability, accountability, creativity. Hey, this all starts with you, leader. Teams become what leaders allow and demonstrate. So what you're doing and what you're demonstrating, if you're maybe slacking around on a Friday, well, guess what? Your team's going to start to feel that energy and that vibe, and they're going to do the same thing. They're going to repeat what they see. If you're strong-willed, kind of a puffed up chest, always loud at the meeting, boisterous, demanding, well, guess what? Your team's going to create that environment themselves as well. They're going to mimic you. But if you want vulnerability, accountability, creativity, even authenticity, leadership goal starts with you at the top. This is what you have to be. In fact, I often challenge the leaders that I talk to many times, just to help get them back grounded, is to put a mirror. Because many times they don't have a lot of mirrors in their space, whether it's personal or in the office. And I invite them, put a mirror somewhere that you can see every day. And I want you to walk up and I want you to stare at that mirror. And I want you to look. I prefer the elongated mirror, something that hangs on the door or maybe mounts on the wall, because you want to see yourself head to toe when you look at that mirror. And I encourage those leaders that I talk to, and I say, I want you to look at that every day. You walk past it, you stop, you look. I want you to look at yourself in the eyes and see what you see. How you dress. How's your hair? How's your fashion? How's your posture? How's your position? How's your stance? Smile. Do you just look at the mirror and look grumpy? You have that face with grimace? That's what people are seeing. And yeah, I mean, we all go through this series of emotions and we're human, and I get that. But if you walk past a mirror and you look at it and you're like, who's that guy? You need to stare at that mirror a little bit longer. You need to get back connected with yourself. You need to see that person in the mirror who's vulnerable, who stands for accountability, who's open to creativity, and who is in that image that you are seeing totally, completely authentic. Because if you don't recognize the person in the mirror, I can tell you right now, your team doesn't recognize you either. And or if you see different people in that mirror, given different days, that's what your team sees as well. And when your team starts to consider that maybe their leadership is Jekyll and Hyde or multiple personalities, that disrupts a little bit of the building process because they don't know who their leader is each day. But just as you look in the mirror and see that individual, and every day you look and go, I know that person, I know that guy, I know that girl. And you make eye contact and you see each other and you let that, it happens. Come on, try it. I know some of you in the car probably can't do it now, but you look at that head to toe mirror and then you look eye to eye, you will feel the vibe of your own energy. I can get into the neuroencoding aspects of what that is, but I'm just sharing with you, you're going to feel that energy and you're going to feel your energy sort of like it's a mirror. It's replicating what it sees, and it's also replicating the energy. And so if you look in that mirror and you're like, I'm a little uncomfortable looking at this person, guess what? Your team is going to be uncomfortable looking at you. You need to be comfortable with you so that you're emitting the right proper energy that your team is going to feel and resonate, and they're going to pass it right back to you. And you're going to feel it. You're going to know it in your conference rooms. I mean, we could even get a little bit more weird on this, but even in your Zoom meetings, you're going to feel that the team is with you, even though you're not physically in the same room. There's a whole study on the energy of connection, even halfway across the world. So it's not woo-woo. This is connection. Connection 101, quite frankly. There's a whole workshop I do about connection. But anyway, this is connection. And this is what you have to be, being an authentic, effective leader. Part 4, and since we are on the subject of business, and I can't help but speak the language of business sometimes, is the ROI of realness. What is the real? Why this matters more than ever? You know, in this year 2025 plus, workplaces, relationships, and communities are built on trust, not titles. You know, we all put our pants on one leg at a time. So titles are great and they show the authority, but there also has to be the camaraderie of leadership and realness. Authentic leadership drive. It just does. It motivates people. I mentioned in another podcast about soul's purpose. Well, I mention it all the time, quite frankly, but when you're laying in bed and you wake up in the morning, you're looking at the ceiling, and your first thought is the dread of, oh, I have to go be in a room. I have meetings today. I have to go be in a room with my leadership, my boss, whomever they are. And you're dreading that, you're bad leader. It's just, that's not what you want. But if you have team members, colleagues, and subordinates that are waking up thinking, I got to get up, I got to get ready, I can't wait to get to a meeting to engage with my higher up. That's what you want. That's the authentic leadership that drives, is when your team can't wait to show up at the meeting. They may even skip stopping for coffee because they want to get there early and possibly engage in some questions or fresh ideas, or just to get the seat up in front so that they can absorb all the information you're going to share with them. That's creating drive. Not to mention the creation from that drive is creativity, and that they're going to start thinking beyond. And then, okay, you, at that point, once you've created the drive and you have that team member or groups of teams that are out thinking, hello, that's what you just created, is your own AI, your own large language model is these teams of individuals together collaborating from your great leadership that are out, you know, scanning the web, scanning the industry, solving the problem, doing the thing, doing the busy from your idea or from their idea to bring to you and say, hey, I've done some research with probably the help of AI, so we don't want to throw them out completely under the bus, but your team members are now collaborating and being creative and bringing ideas to you through drive, through ambition, higher engagement. And what is this? This creates a strong loyalty where not only is it people you are working with and building something amazing and evolving and growing and creating those steps of higher and higher levels, you're also creating loyalty with those individuals. And those individuals have loyalty to the leadership. And it's not for fear of, oh, I better do this or else. It's, I can't wait till I can present this to leadership because I want to stay connected. And again, like I mentioned earlier, the spark, this is faster collaboration. I mean, we talk about how AI is combing the outskirts of the internet and all the data and the information that's available, quite frankly, on the planet Earth now, because we've data mined so much and it's able to access all of that. And we brag about how fast it's doing it and how much more faster it's doing it. And probably by the time this episode airs, the numbers won't make sense, but as I mentioned, the higher engagement, the stronger loyalty, this creates faster collaboration. You're not going to find your team hanging out at the water cooler or in the around the coffee pot commingling about what the weekend's going to be like. They're going to be busy because they want to do what it is they need to do because there's so much energy and they're being their authentic self because they want to provide for the team. And they want to be leaders. They want to emulate you, the leadership that they see. Remember, you're an example. And now they want to be like you. And this kind of just goes into just better innovation. And I don't know anybody that doesn't want higher engagement, stronger loyalty, faster collaboration, and better innovation in their business. Because if you don't, then you're not in business. I don't know what you're doing, but people I talk to, those are 4 things that are really important to them. And if you can get that to authentically, automatically happen with your team, whew, again, you've blown it out of the box. Unbelievable. See, at Ask Adam Live, realness is baked into the brand. Storytelling, coaching, and strategy all start with what's the real version of this moment? And how can it serve others? I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I know we got kind of crazy, got a little deep. Sometimes I get on my rants, but I think that's part of the show. That's part of the authenticity that I bring to each episode. So let's just recap. Authenticity is your leadership superpower. In a curated world, being unfiltered, but with intention, is an act of courage. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be aligned. So as I mentioned earlier, and we'll bring it back again, identify the 3 core leadership values and post them where you'll see them daily. Share one real moment where you choose to lead authentically using the hashtag lead real with Adam. Hashtag lead real with Adam. Share that on any of the social media sites, on your own site, and just share with others how this particular episode or others have inspired you to do something with your team, have inspired you to move forward or have inspired you to just dial it back a little bit and go back to your authentic self. And I am most certain that when you dial it back, and again, you may take 2, 3 steps back and it seems negative, but you're going to see your position propel 10 times because you went back to authenticity and you stayed there and you cultivated authenticity with your teams and subordinates. In an artificial world, the boldest move you can make is to show up unfiltered and aligned, because trust isn't built through polish, it's built through persistence. This has been another amazing episode of Ask Adam Live. Now let us all go out and make it a great day.